Okay, delighted to say I've got the now leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, back on the channel. Richard, how are you?
Yeah, fantastic. Great to be with you, Michael.
Yeah, well, look, a lot's happened since we last spoke. We've got to start, I think, with the prospect now of the Hartlepool by-election. Of course, you stood in the Hartlepool constituency at the last general election and achieved more than 10,000 votes. Richard, are you going to stand?
Well, that's the big question. Everybody's asking me. And, what I'm saying is, yeah, I'm looking at it very carefully. I was up there yesterday. It was great to be back. And, it's a really interesting constituency. We knew this by-election was going to happen at some point. We just didn't know when. And so, yeah, we're going to make an announcement at some point next week, whether it's me standing. We've got some great local potential candidates as well. It's very interesting. What I can tell you is that Labour have selected, bearing in mind that Harleypool was about the highest Brexit vote across the country, Labour have, in their usual sensitive, empathetic way, chosen not only someone who voted Remain, but actually a deep Remainer who wanted a second vote on the referendum, and also someone who, interestingly, actually was advocating that we stay in the highly successful European Medicines Agency, with all the consequences that would have meant, which would have meant that we would have been in the disastrous EU vaccine scheme. So Labour have lost the plot on that. The Tories have had well over 100 applications. It's going to be very interesting, very close. And Hartlepool is a special place, that can vote in. It is a marginal in a sense. Yes, it's been Labour for 60 years. But equally, as you saw at the last election, actually people are much more prepared to lend their vote for who they think's, good candidates, interesting candidates. It was very close last time, and who knows what might happen this time.
Now, Richard, a huge set of elections in May, of course, and obviously the Reform UK has been asking people to put themselves forward as candidates. Can you give people some idea of what the scale of your campaign is going to look like in terms of numbers of candidates across the country?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really significant, and we'll have usefully over 500 candidates across all the different types of elections. We'll have a full slate of candidates in London for the Assembly, in Wales for the Welsh Assembly. Likewise, in Scotland, we'll have really good group of candidates there. Then we've got candidates for the PCC, Police and Crime Commissioner elections, which are across England and Wales. And then hundreds of candidates in local elections. It's not too late. If any of your listeners and viewers actually, back Reform UK and want to stand, then go to the website, fill in the form, and the team will come back to you. So yeah, it's a big footprint. Clearly, it's not been easy with the lockdown. A number of people have been a bit nervous. That you're just wondering what. So. And campaigning is going to be quite challenging as well. You can't canvass and door knock in the traditional way. So yeah, it's going to be different. More focus on social media, and in a sense, it's not easy for every party, but particularly that much harder for a small party. But we view this, Michael, as a building block towards the general election in 3 years' time. And many of those hundreds of candidates are interested in standing as a MP candidate in 3 years' time. And that's very much the pitch we're making is, look, this is a building block going forwards.
Now, Richard, I did ask members here on my channel, and thanks to those of you supporting the channel, who've hit the join button and get the supporters badge next to your name in the comments. I asked them if they had any questions for you, the best of which was Poptastic, interesting name there, who's a regular viewer, who got this question for you, which I think is quite interesting. He's saying, obviously, you've become leader of Reform UK for a long time as the Brexit Party. You were obviously the chairman. Are you feeling any pressure having taken over from Nigel in that role of leader? How different is that for you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, it does come with different responsibilities. And clearly, in a sense, Nigel is unique. And, it's massive boots to try and fill. And obviously, everyone's different. I'll try and carry out the role in different ways. And, thankfully, thanks to Nigel and all the efforts that everybody put in, Brexit has been done. It's not perfect, as we know. But now we've got to look forwards and all the other issues. What I say is the country deserves to be better run and managed than it currently is under the two-party system. And the first thing I did as leader was to announce our big new economic vision, which is based around the philosophical concept: low tax, simple tax means higher growth. And if you get higher growth, you get better wages for the least well off, and you've got more money to invest in healthcare and other things. And I think, the country wants to look forward. Everybody's exhausted and knackered, frankly, and frustrated as we hopefully end, or near the end of this lockdown. But there's some massive challenges. But we've got to be positive. We've got to be ambitious. And so, we're setting out a range of areas. Both, we want to reform the way the economy is run and taxed. We've got to reform our public services so they're much more efficient. They work faster. We're the customer. And so that's the second thing, is reforming the way public services are run. And then the third area of reform that we're very focused on is reforming the institutions that govern and control us. Whether it's the bloated, wasteful BBC, the unelected cronyism of the House of Lords, the unaccountable civil service. We've had a bit of a shocker through this lockdown. And the list is a long one, reforming the electoral system. And I think there's a real appetite amongst voters who are much more used now, much more willing to lend their vote to parties to say, actually, we need to look at something different. And in a sense, the Conservatives, they've become the party of high taxes, high regulation, low growth. And so there's a gap there for a party that believes actually, and our our economic proposals, we would free up over 6 million of the lowest paid from paying any income tax whatsoever. And your listeners, I'd urge you, go to our website, look at our economic plan. We'd free up over 1 million small businesses and self-employed from paying any corporation tax. So it's really bold. We'd abolish a raft of complex, stifling taxes. People might be surprised, I'm going to think about Harry Potter. Harry Potter, the combined works of Harry Potter, Michael. It's a good fun read. You might have watched the films. The tax code in the UK is 5 times longer than the combined works of Harry Potter. You think all those books piled up, multiply that by 5 times, that's mad. And that stifles growth if you've got regulations and taxes that are so complicated. It's just one simple example. So, we've got to cut taxes to get faster growth. We've got to cut daft regulations to get faster growth. And we've got to cut the mountain of wasteful spending. So I'm focused on how we change things going forward, putting forward an interesting agenda of things that matter to people. The pounds in our pocket is really, it's never been more important given how much people have suffered in lockdown.
Yeah, now I've been covering some of the polls, Richard, and broadly speaking, the Conservatives riding relatively high in the polls, Labour doing pretty appallingly across the board. And I saw that you set out your stall in terms of the economy. You did that sort of online live press conference. Will there be more sort of policy specific presentations of that kind between now and polling day from you?
Less so between now and polling day, but in terms of sort of the big issues on public services, on health and education, yes, there will be after the elections. We'll be making detailed proposals in other areas where we think reform is needed. But at the moment, we're very much focused on, the key crisis now is how do we recover? The economy is shattered. Millions of people have had, jobs gone, tens of thousands of firms bust. So the real focus, we've got to how we recover economically. So that's what we're really majoring on before putting forward detailed proposals after the elections on some of the other issues, how you reform the public services and the various institutions. But at the moment, the focus has got to be on the best way to rapidly recover the economy. The Conservatives at the moment, it is extraordinary. They're riding high, as you say, on the polls, but they're proposing the highest taxes for 70 years, the lowest growth for 60 years. And so we're sort of thinking, well, what is their philosophy? You can barely put a cigarette paper between them and the Labour Party now. And you had this extraordinary situation a couple of weeks back where you had a Labour shadow chancellor asking a Tory chancellor to delay tax increases. You couldn't make it up.
Now, I've got to ask you, Richard, obviously I served alongside you in the European Parliament's Brexit Party MEPs. We've seen the EU still haven't ratified the deal. They've taken legal action against the UK. We're being threatened with export bans. And yet you dig into the UK budget and you see that between 2019 and 2026, we're scheduled to give them £49 billion, 20 billion over the next 2 years alone. Doesn't seem very balanced to me.
No, there's no balance at all. You've absolutely hit the nail on the head. And we've got huge leverage, huge negotiating leverage. Look, I mean, we all wish the EU vaccine programme was going as well as ours. You know, ours is a beacon. No one wishes any ill on EU citizens, of course not. It's probably no surprise that they've met the EU themselves have messed it up. You know, we've known that it's a big, monstrosity of bungling bureaucracy. But the bizarre thing is the way the EU leaders, the political leaders like Macron and Merkel, have cast doubt on a British vaccine and a British success story. And you have to think, actually, that is basically, it's Brexit jealousy, it's Brexit nationalism, and so they've really damaged the take-up of vaccines. So you've got this strange situation, Michael, that the EU is looking to sort of impose an export ban on AstraZeneca jabs, and yet there's over 7 million of those vaccines sitting in fridges across the whole of the EU. You couldn't make it up. My simple view is, look, folks, if you don't like our vaccines, if you don't want them, please send them back. We'll use them here, or we'll give them to other countries who are rather more appreciative. I think they've really, well, we have got negotiating leverage, as you say. Boris should say, look, folks, either we sort out this vaccine nonsense within a couple of weeks, either we sort out the huge issues of the Northern Ireland Protocol that's causing massive problems in Northern Ireland. We sort out the issues regarding fishing and the export difficulties of fishing, set a very tight timeline to get around the table 24/7, sort it out. Otherwise, the sanctions are, we're not going to pay the money. You're in breach. You haven't ratified the deal. You're in breach. You haven't shown good faith. Sorry, folks, the money's not coming. And by the way, it might suddenly become a bit harder to export German cars here into the UK. If we use that negotiating leverage, then all of a sudden, I think you might find that people in Brussels might start coming to the table a bit more.
Well, as ever, Richard, great to speak to you and catch up with you. I'm sure we'll speak again closer to the election. But as ever, thanks for joining me on the show today, and we'll speak again soon, I'm sure. Cheers.
Great pleasure.